it's Alice and welcome to another episode of Book Chat. Now this episode is a few days late because we went to Bumbling Festival and I got a bad case of the festival flu. I had no voice at all on Sunday. I was asleep for most of the day yesterday. It's now Tuesday and we normally upload Book Chat on a Monday and my voice is still a little bit all over the place, but I'm less tired. So we're going to film today. Luckily it's a short episode of Book Chat because I don't know if I was just missing everything because I had a lot else on. But it didn't really feel like much got announced last week at all. And a couple of the things that I'm going to mention today are actually things that must have been announced a while ago, I think, but I just missed them. And I didn't know whether you guys would be aware of them either. So I just thought I would bring those to your attention. The first of which is the fact that Amazon Prime are releasing an adaptation of My Lady Jane. That is being released on June 27th. So if you're a fan of My Lady Jane and the Lady Janies, then that will be one for you to check out. It will be interesting to see whether they do adapt the other companion stories or whether they just stick with the one. The collector's edition of George R.R. Martin's Fire and Blood has also been released. So that was actually out on the 23rd. So it came out during this week. I hadn't even seen it get announced. And I'm really surprised that they've done it in this order because it means they did the original 3 books in the A Song of Fire and Ice series. I know they're doing one of like the later spin-off books, but they still haven't finished the other 6? 4, 5 and 6, the other 3. 4? I don't know how many books there are in A Song of Fire and Ice at the moment because I've got like different editions that are split into multiple parts. But yes, if you are somebody who has been collecting these collector's editions, then the newest one has been released. But again, I didn't see this get promoted at all. So I don't know how long ago it was announced or if you've all had it pre-ordered for like literally a year. Podscape released the redesign for their paperback of Throne of the Fallen by Kerry Maniscalco and also announced a Waterstones exclusive edition with like an exclusive colourway and sprayed edges. So if you weren't a fan of the hardback cover, or if you just wanted another edition of this one, then there's more options for you for that now. The redesigned editions of these are being released on August the 6th. There was also some quite shocking news from the Penguin Random House America site this week, as they've actually dismissed 2 of their publishers. And it seems like it's mostly just a cost-saving exercise, but I'm quite surprised by the fact that they've done that when they're still actively acquiring smaller imprints. It's too much to try and get into all of the drama with Penguin, but from what I can gather, they tried to buy another publisher, I want to say Scholastic, and then they basically got taken to court because it was like they were trying to get a monopoly on the publishing industry, and then they've got to pay off like $300 million in legal fees. So instead of saving money or making enough money to do this, they are buying small publishing houses and imprints and things like that to try and get the money from them, but they're also just firing staff members. Please, if you do know any more about this situation and I am incorrect, then let me know, because I've done as much research on this as I can, but most of the articles are hidden behind paywalls, and I'm not going to pay a subscription fee to the New York Times when I don't need to. So from the research that I've done, this information is sound. I will link the article down below with all of the details about it so that you can do some research into it yourself if you'd like to. I believe I've managed to find a version of the article that doesn't have the paywall built in. But if you're having difficulties finding it, I can always try and get a transcription for you. I think the most interesting part of this story is the fact that the 2 publishers that they have dismissed are actually ones that I think have had some of the better selling releases from their respective imprints within the last year. So the first publisher who was dismissed was Lisa Lucas, who was actually behind the publication of Chain Gang All Stars. And the second publisher was Regan Arthur, who was behind the publication of Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Yes, now a controversial title because of the author's views, and one that a lot of people have kind of been boycotting, but was one of the best-selling titles and did win a hell of a lot of awards. So it is surprising that they've chosen these 2, and I also think it's disappointing because as far as I can tell, Lisa Lucas was actually the first black employee in like the 50 years of the imprint that she was working for. So it would have been nice to see them championing diversity rather than dismissing a publisher who had brought in quite a well-selling title. But again, I'm not I'm not a member of the publishing industry. I don't know enough about it to really comment too closely. But I'd say this would be a situation that it'd be worth keeping an eye on, just in case more develops over the coming months and into the next kind of year as the financial year goes forward. The Lock Library also announced the next series that they were featuring in their fantasy subscription. So between July and August, they will be featuring the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, which is the Jade City series. Illumicrate have already done a special edition set of this one, so if you have that, then you might be breathing a sigh of relief. But if you missed out on that one and you are on the Broken Bindings waitlist, then it would be worth getting this one, because I think they're going to be a quite high reseller. People really do love this series, and it's one that I would like to get a wiggle on with pretty soon. And other than that, I just have 2 Fairy Loot announcements for you. So they finally announced the second part of the Vampire Academy series by Rochelle Mead. That's going on general sale on July 12th, so at least they've given us a little bit more notice this time. And they've also announced that they're doing an edition of Stardust by Neil Gaiman, which I think, if I'm right, is the first time that any of the UK book boxes have worked with Neil Gaiman. It would be interesting to see if this is something that's going to continue, because it would be nice to see more of his special editions coming through. Would personally love to see a special edition of Good Omens, because I think that's a great book. But definitely an interesting one for Fairy Loot to announce and seem quite out with the blue. That one's going on general sale on August 22nd, so you do have quite a bit of time to get ready for that one. Other than that, I guess I should talk about what I've read this week, and the answer is not really a lot, which I knew was going to be the case. We went and saw Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties on Thursday, went to the Funeral for a Friend Newport show on Friday, and then had Slam Dunk on Saturday, so the week was kind of taken up by other things. I did read the Aaron West diaries in the car on the way to the show in Bristol, and I think it's absolutely phenomenal. If you don't know anything about Aaron West and the Roaring Twenties, the idea is that it's a character study about a guy who's had like the worst year of his life. His father passes away, his wife sadly loses their child, and they end up separating, and he kind of buries himself in alcoholism, experiences very intense depression, has kind of thoughts of suicide, and it's 3 albums that kind of tell the story of this guy as you see him dealing with this and working out how he's going to live his life, like whether he's going to continue going down this route or whether he is going to try and turn things around. The diaries complement this because they bridge the period between Routine Maintenance, which came out in 2019, and In Lieu of Flowers, which was released this year. So it talks a lot about COVID and the way that it affected the touring, the kind of mental health implications of the pandemic and the lockdowns, and it's really interesting to see it through this lens, because you could see the music industry kind of shutting down, but to actually get an inside perspective on it, I find really, really fascinating. This is the side project of Dan Campbell, who is Soupy from the Wonder Years. So if you are a Wonder Years fan and you haven't listened to Aaron West yet, I would really recommend it, because it's one of my favourite solo projects. And this really adds so much to it, because you can see the lyrics playing out on the page. So if you listen to the album and you read the diaries, you can get a lot more from the album, and it kind of fills in the gaps between the songs and tells you a little bit more about Aaron's mindset and his viewpoint. This came with the limited edition vinyl pre-order of the album, and I'm really, really glad that I forked out that little bit extra to get it, because it really is worth the money. It was so worth the read, and it took us the entire journey to Bristol, even though it's tiny. So it was really put us in the mindset for the show, which was great. Other than that, I did manage to get another part and a half of The Leftovers done. It's still chugging along. I don't really know how I'm feeling about it, and I think that's why I've been kind of happy to put it down for a few days to get away from that world, because the concept is brilliant, but I just feel like it's a bit too intimate in its execution. I was hoping to see more about the way the sudden departure had impacted the kind of whole world, but instead it's very, very focused and very intimately connected to this small community and to these characters, to the stage that some of them you're just seeing their lives, and it's almost like the sudden departure doesn't even matter, because like Jill, for example, who is the mayor's daughter, is one of the characters, and she's kind of gone off the rails a little bit. She's not doing her studying. She's now kind of flunking out of school. And this is all because her mum's left to join the Guilty Remnant, which is kind of like a cultish group who are trying to remind everybody that the sudden departure happened and not let people move on with their lives. And when you're in Jill's chapters, you know that the sun departure was the catalyst behind her mum leaving. You know that her mum leaving is the catalyst behind her failing at school. But it doesn't really feel like it's actually had, like, a direct impact, because at the end of the day, her mum could have chosen to leave for any reason. Like, yes, she did choose to leave because of the sudden departure, but it just reads a little bit as, like, child from a divorced family having, like, a rebellious phase. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's connected to the story that I was hoping to read. And even though I do like the characters, I just think that's why I'm struggling to feel motivated by picking it up, because there's more interesting subplots going on in the background that aren't getting a lot of focus. So, like, a member of the Guilty Remnant has ended up dead, and the police have kind of tried to investigate it, but the Guilty Remnant are a group who practice chosen silence, selective mutism, I suppose. They just do not speak to people. So they're not being forthcoming with any kind of evidence. They're not helping the police in their investigations. So the police have just kind of written it off as like, it's just one of those things that happens. And all of the town members are a bit like, that's what happens when you're causing trouble and you're, like, following people and trying to remind them about this thing that they all want to forget about. But I think that the idea of this member just turning up dead is way more interesting to me than just Jill going off and going to parties and failing her exams, but it feels like that's more of what's being focused on. So it'll be interesting to see if the last part wraps it together a little bit more neatly, because there's some other plot lines going on that, again, aren't progressing too quickly. There's some nice little vignettes, like Tom, who is the mayor's son, so Jill's brother, he's gone off to university and he's dropped out and he's joined another cult, a different cult. And their leader has been arrested for child trafficking and bigamy and things like that. And he'd claimed that the child of his loins would be the next saviour. So Tom is assisting the girl who is pregnant to get her to safety, to get her to, like, a refuge family that can help her until the baby's born. And there's this really nice scene when they're, like, on a bus travelling across the country and they're talking to this guy who's meant to be going out to war the next day. And he's like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And they kind of convince him to join a different religion that they're not part of, but they're pretending to be part of it so that they're not linked to the cult leader. And it's just really kind of wholesome that he's like, actually, like, after seeing all of these people disappear and understanding, like, the impact that it has on people when people are just kind of wiped off the face of the earth with no explanation, I don't want to be involved in that anymore. I thought that was a nice allegory, like, combining, contrasting the sudden departure with the idea of, like, war and battles and death and things like that. But the moments like that are very few and far between, and it means that they stick out in your head very well, but then the kind of bits in between are a little bit wishy-washy. And I've kind of gotten stuck because the mayor's just gone out to Valentine's Day dinner with somebody, and they're just kind of ruminating on the fact that, like, neither of them particularly know what to do in this situation, because he's still married to somebody else and her husband disappeared during the sudden departure. So they're just kind of in their own heads like, I didn't really want to come, and he's like, I'm surprised I asked you to come, but they're not really talking. It's just, like, them ruminating on the fact that they're going out to lunch, and I don't really care about that aspect of the story. So it's a difficult one. I think if I cared about the characters a bit more, rather than just kind of had a passing interest in them, I might be reading this one more and enjoying it a bit more. But at the moment, I'm still kind of struggling. Happens. It happens. Other than that, it's been a great week. Loved the Aramis show, loved the Funeral for a Friend show. I think Lucas Woodland from Holding Absence is a phenomenal vocalist, and to hear him on those songs was stellar. So if they do decide to do any more shows with him in the future, you best believe I'm going to be front row. And Sunnook was great. As you can see from Becca Fowles' vlog, everyone was taken down with the festival flu. Everyone lost their voices. We were all singing too much and we were forgetting to drink and we weren't looking after ourselves, and I had my kids there, so that was chaotic until one of them fell asleep, which was just the best part of the day for me. It was like, oh, he's asleep, that's alright, we can rest and relax a little bit. But yeah, phenomenal. And I really do just want to say that Sunlight South in particular, because that was the one that I attended, they'd listened to all of the feedback from previous years, and it's the easiest time we've ever had with parking, it's the easiest time we've ever had with leaving, it's the easiest time we've ever had with kind of getting around. So that was really, really good. Barely had any queues for the bathroom, barely had any queues for the water points. It was just a lot of improvements. I know there was some controversy about Sunlight North because they had to close off the car parks prior to the event beginning because the ground wasn't stable because of the rainstorms that they'd been having, which isn't the best. But I'm just purely talking from a Sunlight South perspective. It was fabulous. And I'm looking forward to seeing who they get on the lineup next year, because there are a couple of predictions that I've got, and if we can get them, I would be really, really happy, because it's been a long time since I've seen Young Guns, and it would be really good to see Neck Deep there again. So we'll just have to wait and see. But that's pretty much it for this episode of Book Chat. I hope that you enjoyed this. I'm going to try and get more reading done this week, but I'm also on my week off, and I just really want to tidy my house. I really just want to listen to music and clean and just kind of decompress, and then hopefully get back at it again when I'm able to read, like, on my way to work, and I'm able to read during my lunch breaks. So when I'm back at work next week, we'll definitely have a bigger reading update for you. But for now, I am Alyce. This is the Bumbling Blogger, and this is Book Chat. If you like this video, please give it a like, and if you'd like to subscribe, we'd be super duper grateful. We post new Book Chat episodes every Monday, unless I'm dying, in which case it's every Tuesday, apparently. But we will see you soon with another one, and I hope that you enjoyed this. Bye! I can feel my throat going already. Good lord. Why can't I keep any basic information in my head for more than a minute?